CEO for them as their businesses grow, and then hopefully at some point that they want to pay it forward, and then they become a sponsor or a member of our board, or even what we call our legacy board, and their function is entirely pretty much, being available for mentors, and also helping to fund our scholarship fund that does allow participation with some of the nonprofits to have scholarships, or maybe a business that's in transition.
So in your working with these women, Laurie, what have you found is the major roadblock that they find? I mean, whether they're in business for themselves, or whether they're C-level, or for a corporation, or if they're a not-for-profit, what is the biggest obstacle, or the biggest complaint, or the biggest, oh my gosh, you've heard?
Well, pretty much it's when they're going to invest. I think when they go to investors for financing, they tell me that they just really face some of the questions that have been asked of them that they were quite surprised and taken aback, or some of the reasons, and of course they're not in writing, on why they may not have been funded. So I think that's a major roadblock. But in a lot of instances, I think sometimes women just get in our own way, and if it's lack of confidence, there's the Confidence Code book that Caddy Kay wrote, and it talks about the gap of confidence in women, and that we tend to not be as assertive as a man, or as self-comfortable. So I think that we can sometimes be our own stumbling block, or letting the thoughts of what's the imposter syndrome. Oh, I can't do that. That we tend to get in our own way sometimes.
So it really isn't necessarily outside forces that sabotage us a lot. It's our own internal dialogue that we talk about.
It's a combination. I wouldn't say couldn't say that it's 100% one or the other.
Okay, so it's a combination, and therefore the women who are listening to this, you're going to have some roadblocks along the way. And believe it or not, so do men. I mean, there's a lot of men out there who run through the same type of roadblocks. But if it's really directed at you because you're a woman, then you've got to kind of suck it up, and you've got to have that internal mindset. I'm going to do it no matter what, and that's going to take you a long way. And I would ask you, Laurie, if you have seen a difference of the woman today who's, let's say, around 30, and the woman today who's around 50, and if they talk about the same kinds of things, or if you see a big difference in the young women who are coming up right now.
I'm seeing a difference, and more of the difference is thanking the 30-year-olds, thanking the 50-plus-year-olds for paving the road to make it a little bit easier for them. I think they recognize the work that's been done by the generations in the 50s and up in really making a difference. We still have a long way to go, but we've definitely made inroads in making it easier for the 30-year-olds to come in and get more than 1 week off for maternity leave, so to speak, and be expected back in the office. But it's not only some of those work-life integration issues for women, but it's also, I think that we've also, with supporting women, we've made the inroads for families in general. You talk about family medical leave, and that men are actually more encouraged now, or a 30-year-old is looking at that more closely when they choose their companies to go to work with.
Yes, I think that's very, very true. So I would ask you personally now, what would you tell your younger self if you had a chance to? What do you think are some of the mistakes you made, or what are some of the things that you would do differently than what you've done in the past?
Well, I certainly have always worked hard, and by the way, there's no amount. There's all these great traits that a leader needs to have, but work, it's all going to take hard work no matter what. But I would have told my younger self just do whatever's asked of you. And I'll just tell a quick little story. And I look back at it now as a more mature person. So I had moved, I guess I was 28, and I had moved to New York City. And while I was looking for a permanent job, I took a temp job, and it was filling in for vacation for someone at Citibank. And he was a very senior person, and he was on vacation, and his assistant was on vacation. So the list that was left for me, one of the top things was feed the fish. And I got in my own way going, I went to college and graduated magna cum laude to feed the fish. And I would tell my younger self, don't even let that thought cross your mind. It's because it was a ridiculous thought. You do whatever's asked of you, even if it's feed the fish or walk the dog, as you're looking at career opportunities. The organization that the temp agency had asked me if I was interested in the job, and I don't know what path that could have taken me down. I mean, there are lots of paths in life, but I should have probably would have told my younger self to be a little more open.
Well, it's funny you say that, because so many people have asked me about what I went through. Of course, I never really worked for anybody. I've always had my own business. But what I went through with sexual harassment and so forth, and with clients and with people that I dealt with. And I laugh and say, I was probably so naive that I didn't even know I was being sexually harassed, because when anybody flirted with me or said anything off color, I just kind of looked at them and smiled and went on with whatever I was doing or whatever I had to accomplish. So I just thought it was and I just ignored everybody. So it never really was an issue for me. And I think that maybe that was one of the things that got me through everything, was that I looked at people and thought, well, you got to be nuts. So,
right.
It's true. We look back and say, wow, what are some of the other things that we should be doing? Well, we have about 3 minutes left, and I'd like to just see if it might be interesting to find out, do you see a great diversification between Florida and Boston in terms of how we operate, or how the women are, or how they look at jobs, or what's available? Because there are people from all over the world listening to this, and they're probably saying, well, we don't have this, we don't have that. So it might be a good idea to just compare the two cities.
Well, Boston tends to have more corporate and corporate positions, and we tend to have we have a corporate presence, but not the same as Boston. And Boston has more. We have universities, but we're clearly not the same as Boston, where you've got the Harvard up there, and access to a lot of research and things that we perhaps don't have quite as much down here. But the biggest thing in the difference between, I think, is really the entrepreneurial end, that a bigger workforce of ours is the woman business owner versus the corporate CEO. As far as the difference in our programs, we kind of both set out and we both have in there, we just put our own spin for geographic, just like a buyer would do for a certain area of the country. In retail, you've got to adapt, and you're going to have different size ranges or different types of materials. So we both have the same fundamentals, the cornerstone, the forums. Boston doesn't have the accelerated growth business forum that we have. We've shared that with them, and maybe they feel like they don't have that in between place. We both have strategies. We both strategies for success, the emerging women leadership development program, and we both recognize that that's so important to bring up that next level. And more of what sits in Boston in that strategies for success are corporate women coming from corporations, and we're a little more mixed with that.
I'm going to stop you there, Laurie, because we're running out of time. But
okay.
my guess is My guest has been Executive Director of TCI South Florida, the Commonwealth Institute, Laurie K. Davis. And I want to thank everybody for listening to Women in Business, the show that brings you women entrepreneurs and senior managers. I hope you enjoyed our show today. Connect with me. I invite you to on Facebook and Twitter. Be sure to download my book, Life Lessons from an SOB, on my website, spunkyoldbroad.com, where you can find information on my speeches, coaching, and resources. You can also email me at Gayle Carson, that's Gayle 13 at gmail.com. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, Laurie, for being our guest today. And don't forget to tip your toe in the water and begin where you can.